One day, your child is going to stop sharing certain things with you. Not all at once. Not because of one huge mistake. And not because you didn't love them. It happens quietly. In the little moments when they run to show you something and you smile, but you're not really there. When they start telling you a story and your face says, please get to the point. When they want to be with you, but what they feel from you is stress, distraction, or obligation. And the scary part is, most parents in that moment still believe, but I love my child. And maybe you do, but children don't only grow up on love they're told is there. They grow up on the love they can actually feel. And sometimes what they feel is something else, that they're interrupting you, annoying you, or becoming one more thing on your list. That's how a child starts to feel like an inconvenience. That's how they start sharing less. And that's how, years later, some parents end up wondering why the relationship feels distant. In this video, we're going to talk about why loving your child is not always enough and what to do instead if you want your child to feel not just cared for, but truly liked, wanted, and enjoyed. The small moments when a child feels managed, not enjoyed. Let's start with the part most parents miss. Children usually do not decide, my parent doesn't like me, because of one huge moment. They learn it in the small ones, the look on your face when they start talking and you were already tired, the distracted when they want to show you something that matters to them, the way your voice sounds warm when they achieve something, but flat when they simply want your attention. The way you respond faster to what they do wrong than to who they are. And the hard truth is, children are incredibly sensitive to this. They notice when you are physically present but emotionally elsewhere. They notice when your attention feels rushed. They notice when you sound more relieved to be done with them than happy to be with them. And they do not translate those moments like adults do. They do not think, Mom is just overstimulated. Dad had a hard day. They still love me, they're just distracted. What many children feel instead is much simpler. I'm a lot. I'm interrupting. I'm not really fun to be around. I should make myself smaller. That is how a child can grow up loved and still not feel fully wanted. Not because their parents never cared, but because the child kept having ordinary moments that felt more like management than delight. And this is where many loving parents accidentally send the wrong message. They think love is obvious because they provide, they protect, they show up, they sacrifice, and all of that matters. But children are also asking a quieter question. When I walk into your space, do I feel like a burden or a joy? That question gets answered every day, in your eyes, in your tone, in whether you turn toward them or away from them, in whether their presence feels welcome or like one more thing you have to deal with. And one of the fastest ways a child starts answering that question the wrong way is when they keep having to compete with something else for your attention. When your child has to compete with your attention, one of the fastest ways a child starts to feel unimportant is when they keep having to compete for your attention. Not because you never listen, not because you never care, but because too often they can feel that something else gets the better version of you. Your phone, your work, your exhaustion, your stress, the task you're trying to finish, the conversation you'd rather be having. And children notice that much faster than adults think. They notice when they have to say your name 3 times before you really look up. They notice when your eyes stay on the screen while your mouth says, They notice when you give strangers, coworkers, or other adults more warmth than you give them in ordinary moments. And over time, children start learning something dangerous. To get attention, I have to interrupt. To get a real reaction, I have to act up. What matters to me doesn't matter that much here. That is where a lot of distance begins. Because when a child keeps feeling like they are competing with the outside world for your attention, They do not always fight harder to connect. Sometimes they do the opposite. They stop bringing you things. They stop showing you things. They stop trying to tell you long stories. They stop expecting you to really be there. And a lot of parents don't notice the shift until much later. They just notice that their child shares less, talks less, comes to them less. But usually, children do not stop sharing out of nowhere. They stop sharing when too many attempts at connection have felt half received. And when a child already feels half received, there's another lesson they can start learning fast. That they get the warmest version of you only when they are easy, impressive, or useful. When children feel more valued for performance than for presence. Another way children start feeling emotionally distant from their parents is when they learn that they get the warmest version of you when they are doing well, when they achieve something, when they behave beautifully, when they say the right thing, when they are impressive, helpful, easy, convenient. And at first, this can look harmless. You praise the good grade. You celebrate the performance. You light up when they win, succeed, or make you proud. None of that is wrong. The problem starts when a child feels a clear emotional difference between who they are and how you respond when they perform well, because children notice that too. They notice when you sound more alive, when they make you proud, than when they simply want to be near you. They notice when mistakes make the room feel colder. They notice when your face softens most, when they are easy to manage, and tightens when they are emotional, messy, loud, repetitive, or inconvenient. And over time, a child can start learning a painful lesson. I'm easier to love when I'm easy. I get the best version of my parent when I perform. If I want warmth, I should be less needy and more impressive. That's how some children become high-achieving but deeply unsure of themselves. That's how some children become extremely good while quietly feeling like they are loved most when they take up the least space. And that is not the same thing as feeling secure. Because secure children do not just feel celebrated when they shine. They feel welcome even when they are ordinary, even when they are rambling, even when they are disappointed, even when they are not doing anything impressive at all. And if a child keeps feeling ignored, half heard, or most warmly received only when they perform, something starts happening that many parents do not notice until it hurts. The moment a child stops bringing you so much of themselves. This is the part that should scare parents the most. Not because your child starts yelling at you, not because they become obviously rebellious, but because they slowly start bringing you less of themselves. Less excitement, less weirdness, less random sharing, less of the long stories you used to wish would end faster. They stop interrupting you so much. They stop insisting that you look. They stop trying quite as hard to pull you into their world. And adults often misread that moment. They think they're getting more independent. They're maturing. They don't need me as much now. Sometimes that's true. But sometimes what's really happening is much sadder. The child is learning. This part of me doesn't really get through. This part of me isn't very welcome. I should keep more of myself to myself. That is how children start sharing less. That is how something is missing begins. That is how a child can still love their parent and slowly feel more distant from them. And years later, this is often the part adults remember. Not one huge traumatic scene, but the repeated feeling of being half received, of being an inconvenience, of feeling like they had to shrink themselves to stay emotionally welcome, of learning that their inner world was too much, too long, too inconvenient, or too unimportant to fully bring home. That is the real danger here. Not that your child will stop loving you, but that they may stop bringing you the fullest version of themselves. And by the time many parents feel the distance clearly, the pattern has already been written for years. So if that's the danger, then the question becomes, how do you change the pattern while your child is still small, still open, still reaching for you? What it looks like to make a child feel liked in ordinary daily life. So, what does it actually look like to make a child feel liked in everyday life? Not in the big moments, not on birthdays, not only when they are struggling. In ordinary life, this is where a lot of parents overcomplicate things. They think making a child feel deeply loved must come from big speeches, big sacrifices, or big emotional moments. But often, children feel most secure in something much smaller: the repeated feeling that their presence is welcome. Sometimes, making a child feel liked is as simple as celebrating what makes them specifically them, not just what is impressive, not just what is useful, but the strange joke, the made-up game, the over-explained idea, the oddly specific obsession that makes no sense to anyone else. And one of the fastest ways to make a child feel genuinely valued is to let them teach you something: their game, their hobby, their joke, their made-up system for how their world works. Because when you let your child be the expert for a moment, you're telling them you are interesting enough to learn from. That means your child does not only feel cared for when you are helping them, correcting them, or managing them, they also feel something softer. My parent likes having me here. My parent enjoys being with me. I do not always have to earn warmth first. And that feeling is built in very ordinary ways. When your child walks into the room, your face changes in a good way. When they start talking, you do not instantly rush them. When they show you something random, you let yourself step into their world for a moment instead of staying outside it. When they are silly, repetitive, intense, or a little strange, you do not immediately shut the moment down. That is what delight often looks like. Not perfection, not endless energy, not becoming a full-time entertainer, just letting your child feel again and again. It's good to be me around you. What to do instead? Start looking for one daily moment where you can stop managing your child and simply enjoy them. That may be the weird story they tell at breakfast, the game they want to explain in painful detail, the drawing they bring you, the made-up joke that makes no sense, the way they dance in the kitchen, the question they ask, right, when you are tempted to rush them. Those are often the moments parents dismiss as small, but those are the moments children often remember as proof. Proof that they were not just being supervised. Proof that they were not just being tolerated. Proof that being themselves did not always feel like too much. Try this instead. When your child shows you something, do not only evaluate it, enter it. Instead of, "That's nice," try. "Wait, show me how this works. Tell me your favorite part. You put a lot into this. I can tell this matters to you." I like seeing what lights you up. When your child is talking, do not only listen for the point, listen for the person. Instead of rushing to, okay, what happened? Try. Start from the beginning. I want to hear how you saw it. You really noticed that, huh? That's such a you thing, and I love it. And when your child is simply near you, sometimes let the moment stay warm before you make it productive. Because one of the deepest things a child can feel is not just, "My parent loves me," but "My parent likes me enough to stay present with who I am." That kind of experience builds safety in a different way. It tells a child, I do not always have to perform. I do not always have to be easy. I do not always have to shrink myself to stay emotionally welcome. And that is one of the strongest foundations of closeness you can build. But if you recognize yourself in some of the patterns we've talked about, the next question is not just what to understand. It's where to begin repairing this without turning it into guilt, panic, or one big emotional speech. Where to begin if you recognize yourself in this. If you recognize yourself in some of this, the goal is not to panic. And it is not to sit your child down tonight and unload one huge emotional speech. Because what creates distance is usually not one dramatic moment. And what repairs distance usually is not one dramatic moment either. It is a pattern. which means repair also has to become a pattern. A lot of loving parents make the mistake of thinking, I need to explain myself perfectly. I need to prove how much I love them. I need one big conversation that fixes this. Usually, that is not where closeness starts. Closeness usually starts somewhere much smaller. A different face when they walk into the room. A different tone when they start rambling. A different response when they bring you something you would normally rush past. A moment where your child feels, maybe for the first time in a while, I can get through to you. You're really here right now. It's actually safe to bring you a piece of me. That is where repair begins. What to do instead? Do not start with a grand promise. Start with one repeated experience. One moment a day where your child feels received, not rushed, not managed, not corrected too quickly, not competing with something else for your attention. And if you know you've been distracted, flat, impatient, or emotionally checked out, name that simply, not in a way that makes your child take care of your guilt, just in a way that tells the truth. Try this instead. I think I've been acting rushed with you lately, and I don't want that. You matter to me more than I've been showing. I want to do a better job of really listening. You don't have to fight so hard for my attention. I'm working on being more here with you. That kind of honesty matters, because children do not need parents who never miss the moment. They need parents who notice when they missed it and come back differently. And if your child has already started sharing less, getting quieter, or seeming harder to reach, do not assume it is too late. But do understand this. You may need to become emotionally safer before your child becomes more emotionally open. That means less rushing to fix, less fake listening, less distracted, less warmth that only shows up when they are doing well, and more of the things that help a child feel emotionally welcome. Real attention, gentle curiosity, ordinary warmth, and delight that is not tied to performance. Where to begin this week? Start here. Choose one ordinary daily moment and protect it. Maybe it is the first 5 minutes after school, bedtime, the drive to daycare, breakfast, when they usually come to show you something random. And in that one moment, practice one thing. Put the phone down. Turn your body toward them. Let your face warm up. And stay just a little longer than is convenient. That may sound small. It is not small. Because to a child, repeated small moments are how love becomes believable. And that brings us to the most important part of all. What children carry with them when they grow up, feeling not just loved, but truly liked. So if you love your child, but you're starting to realize they may not always feel fully liked, wanted, or emotionally welcomed by you, here's what I want you to remember. This is not about whether you care. It is about what your child experiences often enough to believe. Because children do not build their deepest sense of belonging only from the fact that they are fed, protected, and provided for. They build it from the repeated feeling that their presence is good here, that they do not always have to earn warmth, that they do not always have to be easy to stay emotionally safe, that they do not always have to perform to get the best version of you. And when a child feels that often enough, something powerful happens. They do not just feel loved. They feel welcome. They feel chosen. They feel safe bringing you their excitement, their weirdness, their disappointment, their long stories, their mistakes, and the unfinished parts of themselves. That is what protects closeness. Because a child who feels genuinely enjoyed does not have to work so hard to be emotionally acceptable. They do not have to shrink themselves. They do not have to guess whether they are too much. They do not have to wonder if they are interrupting your real life. They begin to carry a different message instead. It is good to be me here. I do not have to earn connection. My presence does not feel like a burden. And that message does not just shape childhood. It shapes what they believe about relationships, what they believe about their worth, what they expect from closeness, and whether they keep bringing more of themselves to you as they grow. That is why this matters so much. Not because you need to become perfect, not because you need endless patience or endless energy, but because the ordinary moments are doing more than you think. They are teaching your child whether love feels warm, open, and alive, or whether love feels like care without joy. And if you recognize yourself in some of this, let that be an invitation, not a sentence. Because the same way distance gets built in small repeated moments, closeness can be rebuilt in small repeated moments too. A warmer face, a slower response, a little more curiosity, a little less rushing, a little more delight in who your child already is. Sometimes that is where the future relationship begins changing. Not in one big speech, but in the next ordinary moment when your child reaches for you. And this time, they feel received. If this video helped you see something important in your relationship with your child and gave you a place to begin, subscribe to Parenting Tips HM for more parenting videos that help you understand the deeper problem, change the daily patterns, and build a stronger connection over time. I'm Emma Miller, and I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. What helps your child feel most emotionally welcome with you? Or, if this video challenged you, which small moment do you want to change first?